start today, try this question here. So when you're looking at a question like this, first of all, we see there's no right angles, so it's not sort of your normal trigonometry SOHCAHTOA. Secondly, do we have an angle side pair? Well, we've got an angle and a side there, but that's the one we want to find. We don't have any other angles, so the sine rule is out the question, which leaves us with the cosine rule. And yes, that's when we can deal with this when we have an angle and two sides in between. We can work that out. So let's write down the cosine rule. C squared equals a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos capital C. That's the formula you need to learn. Now I can label my triangle. It's going to be capital C here, little c here, and then it doesn't matter which one's A and which one's B. So x squared equals 45 squared plus 63 squared minus 2 times 45 times 63 cos 76. Put that in a calculator. (4622.3). Just need to square root that to give us x. 67.987. Round that to three significant figures, 68.0, because this is the third significant figure, it's going to go up, so it's going to become 0. We carry the 1 across. And that's in centimeters. That looks about right. All good. So that is just a recap of using the cosine rule from last lesson. Today we're going to look at the cosine rule for calculating angles, because it's really well set up. If you know all three sides of your triangle, then you can work out the angle opposite your side little c. And remember, you can label your sides however you like, so you can work out all the angles essentially. Well, actually, you just need to work out 2, and then you can work out the other one by doing 118 minus the other 2. You could also start bringing in the sine rule once you've got an angle pair. So these things kind of overlap, but yeah, if you have all three sides, you can't use a sine rule because there'd be 2 missing angles and you won't be able to do anything, but you can use the cosine rule. Now, we've been covering this one in green, and that's where I've derived it and used it. However, I just want to remind you that there are these other 2 versions of it, and it's up to you which one you use really, but it's best, I think, to stick with one and then just relabel your sides accordingly. So I'm going to stick with this one. You might find in other videos by me or other people that this one's used. It's probably the most common one, but I like to use the third one. And the reason for this is it's linked to Pythagoras' theorem, because the cosine rule is, as I did say this in my previous video, it's a generalization of Pythagoras' theorem. If we have a triangle and then suddenly we make this capital C 90 degrees here, like so on the left, then cos of 90 is 0, and it just becomes c squared is a squared plus b squared. We don't have to do the minusing term because it's just 0. So it's a really nice link. Otherwise, if you do the same for the first or second formula, you'll get a squared equals b squared plus c squared, and it just seems a bit strange because that's not how we learn Pythagoras' theorem. Having said that, c in this does not have to be the longest side. Just for info, actually, the cosine rule is sometimes called Al-Kashi's theorem. He was a Persian mathematician in the 1400s, so trigonometry was known for, actually I don't know when it was first invented, but it was known for a long, long time. But I think Al-Kashi was the first one to sort of formally write down the cosine rule. So actually, although it's over 600 years old, that's relatively young in mathematical terms. Right, so we want to work out the angle, for example, this angle C, if I know the other 3. The thing is, to work out the angle, we're going to have to try to make cos C the subject, essentially, have it by itself on one side, once we've got the other terms. And so what we're going to do now is basically learn how to make cos c the subject, and we're going to build up to this. So I want you to pause the video and try each one of these questions. You might, if you're not sure, you might try the first one and wait for me to go through it, and then try the second one, and so on. Or you could have a go at all of them and then watch my explanation at the end. So in each case, can you make x the subject? That means get x by itself on one side, and there shouldn't be a minus in front of it either, so it's going to be there by itself. Give it a go. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add x to both sides. Because I've got a minus x, it just makes it positive. So when I do add x, these two cancel, and I'm left with c plus x equals a. And then I can minus c from both sides, and that's going to give me x equals a minus c. And I'm done. I've made x a subject. One alternative is that you could have minused a from both sides, and you would have got c minus a equals minus x, but that is not making x a subject, that's making minus x a subject. You would then have to divide through by minus 1, which would make it positive x, and then you'd have to basically, when you divide or times by minus 1, you can flip them around. You can make it a minus c. But I wouldn't advise you do it this way. I would advise you add x to both sides, and then it'll be much easier. For b, it's almost the same, but I've just got c squared and a squared in there. So I'm not going to show all my steps now. I'm going to write each line of working, but I'm adding x to both sides. It's going to become x plus c squared equals a squared. And then I'm going to minus c squared from both sides. So it's x equals a squared minus c squared. Nearly the same thing, but I've got these squareds in there. That's okay. Next one, now I've got a minus 2x in there. Well, guess what? I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So it's 2x plus c squared equals a squared. Minus c squared from both sides. 2x equals a squared minus c squared. But this time I haven't yet made x a subject. I'm going to need to divide through by 2. And the best way of doing that is just to write it as a fraction like this. You could put a bracket around it and divide by 2, but I'm just going with the fraction. All right, stepping up further. This time I'm going to add 2ax to both sides. It becomes 2ax plus c squared equals a squared. Now minus the c squared. 2ax equals a squared minus c squared. And this time, do I divide by 2? Do I divide by a? Actually, I'm going to divide through by 2a, all of it in one go. So x will equal a squared minus c squared over 2a. If you got that by yourself, brilliant, well done. If you got it with a little bit of help, or at least you understand it, then well done as well. If not, then keep practicing. Like, look over it again. You might need to go back and practice rearranging equations. Here we go then. We're stepping it up now. Can you make x a subject of this first one? And then we're going for the full thing. Can we make cos c the subject? Because if we can make cos c the subject, then when we put numbers in, we can find out what cos c is, and hence we can find out what c is. We can find the angle. But first thing is this one. Right, I'm going to now add 2abx to both sides. So it's going to be 2abx plus c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Now I'm going to minus c squared from both sides. And then finally, I'm going to divide through by 2ab, all in one go. That is absolutely fine. And we're done. That's it. So finally, can we make cos c the subject? Give it a go. It is the same process. I'm going to add 2ab cos capital C to both sides. Okay, that's a lowercase c. Remember, it's cos of c, it's not cos times c. Then I'm going to minus c squared from both sides. finally, I'm going to divide through by 2ab. And we're done. This is the cosine rule when you're calculating angles. But I don't advise you learn this. I just think it's like when I'm doing maths, I try and learn as little as possible in some respects. I learn the cosine rule and I learn how to rearrange it, and then every time I need the angle, I just rearrange it because it's, it doesn't take long. The more you do it, you can do it really quickly. This one, otherwise, I have to remember all these things. Which one do I subtract? Okay, it's the one that I want. Yeah, which is on the top, which is on the bottom. I don't know. I wouldn't. I'm not going to write "don't learn," but my recommendation is that you actually just learn the first one at the top, or this one here. And sorry, this one here, and then you learn how to rearrange. And I'm going to give you another method that will work as well for solving questions. But anyway, the process of rearranging is still really important. And like I would hope that you learn how to do it. Let's do it then. Finding an angle when we know all three sides. We've got no angle side pair, we've got to use the cosine rule. So I'm going to do exactly as I would expect you to do, well, using method one, and that is to write down the cosine rule. C squared is a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cos c. I'll label my angles now. So that's going to be capital C, that's going to be little c, and then I'll call this A and B. It doesn't matter which way around that is. Right, now I'm going to make cos C the subject. So I'm going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to add it to both sides. 2AB cos C to both sides, I should say. And I'm going to minus C squared. And then I'm going to divide through by 2AB. You can do this quicker. You can just cross that out and write it as 2AB. You don't have to put every single step in once you become happy with it. But don't just now always use this formula and then in a few months' time you've forgotten it and I can't do the cosine rule. Like, learn the method. That's what I'm trying to get across today. But once I've done that, it is just a case of substituting in. Cos capital C is going to be 13 squared plus 6 squared minus 16 squared all over 2 times 13 times 6. And I can just put that straight in my calculator. Okay, we'll get a negative here. You don't normally get negatives when you're dealing with cosine, but it's the cosine rule. These things do happen. We're not going to go into loads of detail on all that means, but we'll see something interesting happening with the angle. But it's minus 0.3269. And then C is going to be inverse cos. And I can just do inverse cos of the answer. I don't necessarily need to write it down in my working. And I get 109. That's what the negative leads to. It leads to an angle that is actually more than 90, which you don't get in right angle trigonometry. So 109.08, or just 109 degrees. Okay, really solid method for doing that. I want to go through another method that you can use instead, because you might prefer it, and actually it's probably, after all this rearranging, it's probably my preferred way. And that is just to substitute the numbers in right at the start and then solve an equation. So I should just say this is method one. Okay, both times we're sort of using that original formula, and now we're looking at method two. And you can decide which you use. So I'm just going to substitute it in. It's going to be that 16 squared, that's my c, is equal to 13 squared plus 6 squared minus 2 times 13 times 6 cos a. This is what we used when we were working out what c squared was, but this time I know what c is. I don't know what, sorry, did I say cos a? I meant cos c. I don't know what cos c is. And I'm basically going to do the same steps that I did before, but actually, probably when you're solving an equation, I don't know, I would just okay, I'll go through the steps, shall I? Well, I would just subtract 13 squared and 6 squared all in one go, and I would leave that as minus 2 times 13 times 6 cos c. And then I would divide through by the negative. I kind of said before, don't do that. I think I crossed it out. Where's it gone? Here I said, like, don't divide by minus 1, but here it actually makes a bit of sense to do that. Cos c is just going to be 16 squared minus 13 squared minus 6 squared all over minus 2 times 13 times 6. So you know what? It is a bit quicker. You are just solving an equation with numbers in. It's a bit like easier to understand. And we will get exactly the same answer. Like, you can just see the top's been flipped around, but so is the bottom. We've got negatives on both. They are the same thing, and you will get the same answer. So you decide, do you like this one? Or do you like this one? Even better, can you master them both? Over to you then. Can you try this example here? Find the size of angle R. Just relabel your triangle first. That's my recommendation. So hopefully you paused the video and tried it. Please do. Don't just watch the second example without trying it first. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to label this capital C, and then I'm going to label this little c, and then I'll call this A and B. And I guess, yeah, okay, that's capital B and that's capital A if I wanted to do that. So now I'm going to write down the cosine rule. And I'm going to do it now with method 2 to start with. So just substitute the numbers in. 4 squared equals 4.2 squared plus 6.9 squared minus 2 times 4.2 times 6.9 cos c. I'm going to minus 4.2 squared and 6.9 squared. I'm doing it all in one go. And that's going to equal minus 2 times 4.2 times 6.9 cos c. I'm going to divide through by all of this. So cos c okay, nice. Let's see, it's a bit complicated, but hopefully those steps make sense and I can just substitute in. That's my cos c. Actually, it's exact, but okay. 0.8497. So c is going to be inverse cos of that. Don't forget to do that. 31.81. Or 31.8 degrees. Well done if you got that. I hope it's making sense and you can now find angles with the cosine rule. Just quickly, well, Yeah, why not? Just going to demonstrate, if you have done it that way and got it correctly, brilliant. Try and do it with the rearranging equations as well. Have them both there. This will help you develop as a mathematician. So for this one, instead of like making minus 2ab cos c the subject, I'm gonna add it onto both sides. I just think it is best, but you can, you don't have to actually. So plus c squared equals a squared plus b squared. This is method 2. And then I'm going to minus c squared from both sides. So, I can just do that. I can just move it. And then I can just divide through by 2ab. So it's fine to just kind of, that was quite quick. And then I just substitute in for the numbers. So either substitute the numbers in or rearrange. In either case, like decide which you like, but I would say learn this one because you are expected to rearrange equations, and as you progress in maths, it becomes increasingly important and expected. But good work. That is the cosine rule, or Al-Kashi's theorem. Amazing theorem. We can work out sides and angles in triangles that we can't with the sine rule. The two together allow us to, if we have enough information, that is, allow us to work out all the sides and angles. Brilliant. Over to you then. Have a go at exercise 87. Can you work out the missing angles? These 4 questions are quite similar. Just going to show you the answers to them. Here we go. On to 87 star with bearings. I talked a little bit about bearings last time and how you have to be a bit careful. Use the fact, do you know what? Oh, just think about, I'm not going to give it away, not going to do any spoilers, but think about what those 2 angles add up to if these 2 are parallel. Here's the answer to number 9 and this reasoning question. Brilliant.